Welcome back to Cartography and Geography Club. Today we're going to work through how Guyana is going to get out of its current border disputes. But before we do that, let's give some background on how we got here. Before European colonization, the region now known as Guyana was inhabited by various indigenous people, including the Arawak, Carib, and Waro. These groups had no fixed borders in the modern sense, but rather they controlled territories that were fluid and defined by linguistic, cultural, and tribal affiliations. The modern history of Guyana's borders began in the early 17th century when the Dutch established trading posts along the coast. The Dutch West India Company founded the first permanent settlements such as Essequibo in 1616, Berbice in 1627, and Demerara in 1741. The Dutch built a series of forts and canals, marking the beginning of territorial demarcation. However, the boundaries of these settlements were not clearly defined, leading to future disputes. In 1814, under the Treaty of London, the Dutch ceded the colonies of Essequibo, Demerara, and Berbice to the British. These three colonies were united into British Guyana in 1831. The British sought to define and expand the colony's borders, leading to conflicts with neighboring Spanish and Portuguese territories. The most significant border issue for Guyana has been with Venezuela. In the 1830s and 1840s, British explorer and surveyor Robert Schmuckberg was tasked with mapping the colony's borders. Schmuckberg's surveys led to the demarcation of what became known as the Schmuckberg Line in 1840, which extended the colony's boundaries significantly westward, incorporating much of the land now known as the Essequibo region. Venezuela rejected the Schmuckberg Line, claiming that its territory extended to the Essequibo River, which would have included most of what is now Guyana. This dispute led to tensions between Britain and Venezuela, with the latter requesting U.S. intervention under the Monroe Doctrine. To resolve the issue, Britain and Venezuela agreed to arbitration in 1897, and an international tribunal was convened. In 1899, the tribunal largely upheld the Schmuckberg Line, but made some concessions to Venezuela. Both sides initially accepted the ruling, and the border was generally considered settled for several decades. However, in the mid-20th century, Venezuela revived its claim, asserting that the arbitration was invalid due to alleged British manipulation. This led to renewed tensions and remains a point of contention, with Venezuela continuing to claim the Essequibo region, which accounts for about 2/3 of Guyana's territory. Guyana's southern border with Brazil was established through negotiations between Britain and Brazil. The border dispute was resolved with the signing of the Treaty of 1904. This treaty defined the boundary along the watershed of the Amazon and Essequibo river systems, from the Tacoot River in the west to the Irang River in the east. The border has remained peaceful and uncontested since then. The eastern border of Guyana along the Corentyne River has been disputed by Suriname. The border was initially defined by the Treaty of 1799 between the Dutch and British, which established the Corentyne River as the boundary. However, the question of where the river's mouth was located led to disagreements, particularly concerning the ownership of the New River Triangle, a 15,000 square kilometer area. In the 1960s, the disputed escalated when Suriname, then still a Dutch colony, began to assert its claim more aggressively. This led to a brief military confrontation in 1969, known as the New Triangle River Incident, in which Guyanese forces expelled Surinamese troops from the disputed area. In the 21st century, the dispute shifted to maritime boundaries, particularly after oil was discovered offshore. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea arbitration in 2007 delineated the maritime boundary between Guyana and Suriname, ruling in favor of Guyana. This ruling significantly reduced tensions over the maritime border, although the land border issue remains unresolved. Guyana gained independence from Britain in 1966, inheriting these territorial disputes. The new nation has since maintained that its borders, as defined by colonial treaties and international arbitration, are legitimate and non-negotiable. Venezuela's claim to the Essequibo region has persisted, with periodic flare-ups, particularly when economic resources such as oil come into play. The dispute was brought before the International Court of Justice in 2018, with Guyana seeking a definitive legal ruling to confirm the 1899 arbitration. Now that we cleared up the border history, let's go into the geography that's going to help it resolve its border disputes. Guyana, located on the northeastern coast of South America, is a country of remarkable geographic diversity, combining a vast range of ecosystems from lush rainforests to expansive savannas, and from low-lying coastal plains to dramatic mountain ranges. This geographic variety not only defines the country's natural beauty, but also shapes its climate, biodiversity, and human settlement patterns. Guyana is bordered by the Atlantic Ocean to the north, Venezuela to the west, Brazil to the south and southwest, and Suriname to the east, covering approximately 214,000 square kilometers. It is the third smallest country in mainland South America after Uruguay and Suriname. Despite its relatively small size, Guyana's geography is diverse and complex, offering a microcosm of the continent's broader environmental zones. Guyana is typically divided into four main physiographical regions, each with distinct characteristics. These can be defined as 1. The coastal plains, 2. The hilly sand and clay region, 3. The Rupundi savannas, and 4. The interior highlands. The coastal plains is the most densely populated region of Guyana, is where the capital, Georgetown, is located. This narrow strip of land, about 16 to 64 kilometers wide, runs along the Atlantic Ocean. It is characterized by fertile soils deposited by the rivers, making it the country's primary agricultural zone, particularly in rice and sugarcane. Much of the coastal plain lies below sea level, and a complex system of seawalls, dikes, and drainage canals inherited from the Dutch colonial era protect it from flooding. The region's economy is heavily dependent on agriculture, and the proximity to the ocean has influenced settlement patterns and the development of infrastructure. Inland from the coastal plain lie the hilly sands and clay region, covering approximately 60% of Guyana's land area. This area consists of gently rolling hills with elevations ranging from 100 to 200 meters above sea level. The soils here are generally infertile, with significant areas of white sand known locally as pacara and latticed clay. This region is covered with dense tropic rainforest, particularly in the north, and supports a rich biodiversity. The forested areas are vital for logging, mining, and ecotourism, with notable reserves such as the Ikorama Forest, which is a global model for sustainable forest management and conservation. To the southwest lies the Rupundi savannas, a vast expanse of open grasslands interspersed with gallery forests along rivers, covering approximately 15,000 square kilometers. This region is part of the broader Guyana Shield and extends into Brazil. The Rupundi savannas are characterized by a semi-arid climate and support a variety of grasses, shrubs, and sparse woodland. The region is home to a significant portion of Guyana's indigenous population, primarily the Wapshara and Makushi people, who engage in cattle ranching and subsistence farming. The savannas are also known for their rich wildlife, including species such as jaguars, giant anteaters, and capybaras. The interior highlands occupy the central and southern parts of Guyana, forming part of the broader Guyana Highlands, which extends into Venezuela and Brazil. This region includes some of the most rugged and remote areas of the country, with numerous mountain ranges, plateaus, and isolated peaks. Three prominent geographic features are the Pacarak Mountains, Canuco Mountains, and the Catur Plateau. The Pacarama Mountains form the western border with Venezuela and rise sharply from the surrounding lowlands. Mount Rayarama at 2,800 meters is the highest point in Guyana and one of the most iconic landmarks of the region. The Pacarama Range is part of the ancient Guyana Shield, one of the oldest geological formations on Earth. The Canuco Mountains, located in the southwestern part of the country, are known for their rich biodiversity. These mountains act as a natural divide between the northern and southern Rapundi savannas. The Catur Plateau, situated in the Pacarama Mountains, is home to the Caturs Falls, one of the world's most powerful and awe-inspiring waterfalls, where the Portaro River drops 226 meters into a gorge below. The plateau and surrounding area are part of the Catur National Park, a protected area rich in unique flora and fauna. Guyana is a country of rivers. The name Guyana itself is derived from an indigenous word meaning the land of many rivers. The country's rivers are crucial to its geography, culture, and economy. The major rivers flow from the highlands to the Atlantic Ocean, creating a network. The prominent rivers are the Essequibo River, the Demerara River, and the Berbice River, and the Corentyne River. The Essequibo River is the largest river in Guyana and the third largest in South America. It flows for about 1,000 kilometers from the Aceh Mountains in the south to the Atlantic Ocean. The Essequibo River basin covers nearly half of the country and includes several important tributaries such as the Mazaruni and Cuyi rivers. The Demerara River flows northward for about 346 kilometers. It is central to the economic activities of the country, particularly in the transportation of bauxite. Georgetown, the capital, is situated at the mouth of the Demerara. The Berbice River in the east flows for about 595 kilometers, serving as a major route for the logging and mining industries. New Amsterdam, the second largest town in Guyana, is located at its mouth. The Corentyne River in the country's eastern boundary with Suriname is vital to both countries. It flows for about 724 kilometers and is crucial for fishing and transportation. These rivers, along with numerous smaller streams and creeks, support Guyana's agriculture, provide transportation routes, and contribute to the hydroelectric potential of the country. However, they are also present challenges, particularly in terms of flooding and sedimentation, especially in the low-lying coastal areas. Guyana has a tropical climate characterized by high temperatures, humidity, and significant rainfall. The country experiences two main rainy seasons. The primary rainy season occurs from May to mid-August, and a shorter rainy period occurs from November to January. The interior highlands and rainforest regions tend to be wetter than the coastal plains and savannas. Coastal areas typically experience temperatures ranging from 24 Celsius to 31 Celsius year-round, while the interior can be slightly cooler, especially in the highlands. Annual rainfall varies significantly across the country, with coastal regions receiving around 2,000 millimeters per year, while the interior highlands can receive over 4,000 millimeters. The Rapundi savannas receive less rainfall, contributing to their semi-arid conditions. Guyana is part of the Guyana Shield, one of the oldest and most biologically diverse regions on Earth. The country's ecosystems range from coastal mangroves and marshes to dense forests. Guyana's forests are among the most pristine in the world, covering over 80% of the country's land area. The rainforests are home to a vast array of tree species, including greenheart, wallaba, mora, and purple heart, which are important both ecologically and economically. Mangrove forests line much of the coastline, providing crucial protection against erosion and storm surges. The savannas, while less densely vegetated, support unique plant communities adapted to the semi-arid climate. Guyana's rich biodiversity includes over 800 species of birds, such as the harpy eagle and scarlet macaw, and more than 200 species of mammals, including jaguars, giant otters, and howler monkeys. The rivers and wetlands are home to various fish, reptiles, and amphibians, including the endangered arapahe, one of the largest freshwater fish in the world. The country's variety of ecosystems are also crucial habitats for numerous endangered and endemic species. Conservation efforts are ongoing, particularly in areas like the Ikurama Forest and Katur National Park, which are recognized for their global ecological significance. Okay, so now that we've covered the history and geography of Guyana, let's look at its current border disputes. Guyana has some potential ways that they can resolve them. The two disputes we will look at are the Venezuela and the Essequibo dispute, and the Suriname and the Nude River Triangle dispute. As we have already discussed, the Guyana and Venezuela Essequibo dispute has been a long-standing issue since 1899. The discovery of vast offshore oil reserves in the Essequibo region by ExxonMobil in 2015 reignited tensions, with Venezuela issuing warnings to international oil companies operating in the disputed area. The potential for significant economic benefits from these oil reserves has heightened the stakes for both countries. In 2018, after decades of stalled negotiations and unsuccessful diplomatic efforts, Guyana took the dispute to the International Court of Justice. Guyana sought a definitive ruling on the validity of the 1899 award, aiming to settle the dispute once and for all. Venezuela has argued that the International Court of Justice lacks jurisdiction over the matter and has refused to participate in the proceedings. Despite Venezuela's refusal to recognize the International Court of Justice authority, the court has proceeded with the case. In 2020, the ICJ ruled that it had jurisdiction to hear the case, rejecting Venezuela's objections. The proceedings are ongoing, with Guyana seeking a final and binding judgment that upholds the 1899 award and confirms its sovereignty over the Essequibo region. So what are the best options that Guyana has to resolving this issue? In order to resolve this dispute, the benefits for Guyana to keep the Essequibo region need to outweigh the cost to keep the region, and the cost of Venezuela to keep their claim on the region needs to be greater than any benefit they receive from keeping their claim on the region. Guyana benefits significantly from keeping the Essequibo region due to its rich natural resources, including oil, minerals, and fertile land, which are crucial for its economy. The region also holds strategic importance, making up 60% of the country's territory. Culturally and historically, Essequibo is integral to Guyana's identity, with local communities strongly identified as Guyanese. Retaining the region ensures national unity, economic development, and geopolitical influence. The main cost for Guyana in keeping Essequibo includes the ongoing diplomatic and legal expenses related to the territorial dispute with Venezuela, which claims the region. The dispute also creates political tensions and potential instability, both domestically and in relations with neighboring countries. Additionally, maintaining sovereignty over the vast and sparsely populated area requires significant investment in infrastructure, security, and development. These challenges divert resources from other national priorities and constrain the country's budget in international relations. Venezuela stands to gain significant benefits from claiming the Essequibo region. The area is rich in natural resources, including vast oil reserves offshore, valuable minerals, and fertile land, which could greatly boost Venezuela's struggling economy. Gaining control of Essequibo would also expand Venezuela's territory by nearly doubling its size, enhancing its geopolitical influence in the region. Additionally, securing the region would be a significant nationalistic victory, potentially uniting the country and bolstering the government's domestic support. The costs for Venezuela in claiming Essequibo include international diplomatic backlash and potential economic sanctions, which could further isolate the country globally. The ongoing territorial disputes strains Venezuela's relations with Guyana and other neighboring countries, potentially leading to regional instability. Militarily attempting to enforce the claim could lead to a conflict which would be costly, risky, especially given Venezuela's current economic challenges. Additionally, pursuing the claim diverts resources and attention from addressing the country's internal crises, exacerbating its economic and social issues. Assuming Venezuela did pursue the military action, they would undoubtedly receive harsh sanctions, freezing of foreign assets, and direct military response from Guyana's close regional partners of Brazil and the United States. Even without this regional support, the geography of the Essequibo region is extremely hard to traverse and has multiple natural boundaries that would ensure great losses on an attacking Venezuela force. In order to make sure a lasting agreement can be reached between Venezuela and Guyana, Guyana should continue to work with third parties within the ICJ and United Nations for a comprehensive if-then sanctions definition from the international community to ensure Venezuela knows the impacts of forcefully taking the Essequibo region. Guyana should also encourage joint regional military training events to ensure their regional partners would be ready for the harsh geography of the Essequibo region. As we've already discussed, the Suriname and the New River Triangle dispute continues up to this present day. The dispute came to a head in 1969 when the uninhabited region claimed by Suriname, which was still under Dutch control, attempted to establish a military post in the New River Triangle. Guyana responded by deploying its military to the area, resulting in a brief but intense standoff known as the New River Triangle Incident. Guyana's military presence in the region effectively established de facto control over the territory, which it has maintained ever since. Suriname, however, continues to claim the area as part of its territory. So what are the best options that Guyana has to resolving this dispute? In order to resolve this, we are going to look at the cost-benefit of both Guyana and Suriname, just like we did for Guyana and Venezuela. Guyana benefits from keeping the New River Triangle due to its rich natural resources, including timber, minerals, and potential hydroelectric power, which contribute to the country's economic growth. The region also has strategic importance as it strengthens Guyana's territorial integrity and control over its southern borders. Retaining the New River Triangle helps preserve Guyana's biodiversity as it is home to diverse ecosystems and indigenous communities. Additionally, maintaining sovereignty over the area prevents potential border conflicts and reinforces Guyana's national identity and unity. The costs of Guyana to keep the New River Triangle include the need for significant investments in infrastructure, security, and development to maintain control over the remote and sparsely populated area. The ongoing territorial disputes with Suriname over the region also incurs diplomatic and legal expenses, potentially straining relations between the two countries. Additionally, the necessity to monitor and protect the region's vast natural resources can divert resources from other national priorities. Lastly, the dispute creates a risk of regional instability and may deter foreign investments due to the perceived uncertainty over the area's sovereignty. If Guyana were to transfer this area to Suriname, the cost benefits would essentially swap between the countries. In order to make sure a lasting agreement can be reached between Suriname and Guyana, they should work with third parties within the ICJ and United Nations for a mutually acceptable resource and infrastructure investment sharing project. Not only would this spur economic growth for both countries, it could be an alliance strengthening opportunity between the two countries in light of regional Venezuelan aggression. Currently, neither country can fully take advantage of this region as the dispute continues. Guyana's border disputes are rooted in its colonial past and have persisted into the present, significantly influencing its foreign relations and national security. The most significant and unresolved disputes is with Venezuela over the Essequibo region, which continues to be a source of tension, particularly with the involvement of international actors in the exploitation of natural resources. The dispute with Suriname over the New River Triangle, while less intense, also remains unresolved, although both countries have managed to reach agreements on their maritime boundaries. The resolution of these disputes, particularly through international legal mechanisms like the ICJ, will be crucial for Guyana's long-term stability and development. As the country continues to grow, particularly with the potential wealth from its oil reserves, the importance of secure and recognized borders will only increase. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoy this exploration of Guyana's borders, be sure to like, subscribe, and join our Patreon for more deep dives into the world's most fascinating geopolitical stories. Have a great week, and don't forget to never stop learning.